Hello and welcome to Consulting Without Borders Perspectives, a live monthly show by Gabriel Al-Salim Foundation in which we spotlight and talk to international consultants, experts and leaders who work to address global challenges, promote professional excellence and build a sustainable future. Warm welcome to everybody who is joining us live, and also to those who will be joining us at a later time by watching the replay of this broadcast. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your interest and your support. I am Victoria Olskaya. I'm your host today, and I'm also the president of Gabriel Al-Salim Foundation, a US-based international organization that is based in the United States, but actually works internationally. The foundation is dedicated to the life and inspiring work of Gabriel Al-Salim, who was a certified management consultant, an expert in his field, and who was also a truly global citizen. I'm broadcasting today from Florida in the United States. Please let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from. I think if there are any comments, please let us know. It's always good to see who is joining us from which part of the world. Today is May 1st, and in many countries it is celebrated as International Labor Day. And I hope that you're all doing well on this day, wherever you are, and whether you had a day off or whether you still need to work. So please don't forget to check in to let us know where you're tuning in from. I see we have people joining us from Canada, Dwight, Danyar joining us from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. This is amazing. Lisa from Oregon. Thank you so much for being here with us. We have a company, Business Consulting, EMK Business Consulting, joining us from Texas. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for your support, your interest. Danny is joining us from Louisville, Kentucky. Actually, I want to share something. I recently checked the statistics on the Gabriel Al-Salim Foundation's page on LinkedIn to see who follows our page from which locations. And I was pleasantly surprised that when I saw so many countries that are actually included in the locations from where we get our followers, I counted 24 countries that are mentioned there, and that's in addition to 50% of other locations that were not specifically mentioned. So that's quite amazing. We have followers from United States, Ukraine, Russia, UK, Belgium, Estonia, France, Costa Rica, Turkey, Italy. I'm actually reading from a list that I printed out because there are many countries. We have followers from India, Australia, Portugal, South Africa, Netherlands, Switzerland, China, Hungary, Norway, Czech Republic, Canada, Vietnam. And again, this is in addition to 50% of what the LinkedIn called others. And I know that those include at least 5 countries of Central Asia: Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyz Republic, and Kazakhstan. This is where Gabriel actually worked for many years. And I also know that we have followers from Mongolia, Indonesia, and other countries. So this is quite impressive. I really thank you all for supporting our work and for being here with us. Because of our broad geography, we set the time for our broadcast at this hour, which is a 13-hour Greenwich Mean Time. It's 9 a.m. On the East Coast in the United States, and I know that some of you are joining us in the evening of your time, but this is sort of the best spot where our followers, those who support our work, can follow us, can tune in at a reasonable hour. That's why we keep usually this spot in the day. Today we are broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can post your comments and ask your questions directly in the comment section. We will see your questions and we'll be happy to answer them. I see more people are joining in. Juan from Weston, Connecticut. Thank you so much for being here. And again, thank you for those who are joining us live today. And thank you also for those who will be possibly joining us later by watching a replay. Whichever platform you're tuning in from, please don't forget to hit the like button. This way, more people can actually see us and join our live broadcast. And we will do our very best not to disappoint you with our discussion. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a speaker who has been working as a consultant for almost 50 years. And for his great achievements and accomplishments in 2017, he was recognized by ICMCI, International Council of Management Consulting Institutes, as Academic Fellow. And the next year, in 2018, he also became a fellow of IMC USA, and this is the consulting organization of the United States. He is also chair of the Consultants Peer Group, which coaches consultants beyond startup to success and on to significance. Our guest is also, of course, an active member of IMC USA, as I already mentioned, where he focuses on ethics education. And ethics in consulting will be our topic today. I would like to welcome David Norman, who is joining us from, hi, David.
Hey, Victoria.
Please tell us where you are joining us from.
I am joining you from the North Carolina mountains up in the northwest corner near Virginia and Tennessee. My wife and I have semi-retired up here, have a lavender farm up in the mountains where I still consult from, but it's a good place to be.
That's great. I'm actually, well, I just want to say, well, thank you, Danny, for your comment. He says, welcome to all consultants. Johan saying, indeed, this time is most excellent to meet persons from the largest number of time zones. Well, thank you, Johan. That's what I was talking about, that we chose this time so that everybody, hopefully most people have a reasonable time to join us, so it's not in the middle of the night. And I actually want to say that I'm quite happy that today David and I are in the same time zone. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often because very often our speakers are from the other side of the globe. But today it's one of those rare occasions where we are in the same Eastern time zone. The business EMK Business Consulting says hi to David. Thank you again for everybody who are listening in. Please participate, ask your questions, put your comments. We'll be happy to handle them, to answer your questions. So, yeah, David, before we dive in today's topic of ethics and consulting, which is a serious topic, and I know that you prepared a lot of information and very important material about this. I just wanted to ask you to perhaps share with us a little bit more of how you started being a consultant a long time ago, and maybe a little bit more about your past, because I shared a few details about you, but of course this is just a couple of things I did in my very brief introduction, and there is a lot more to your consulting work and your experience.
Thank you, Victoria. It's sort of scary at one level where even in your introduction, you've used two things that can frighten me. One, you said 50 years, and then you said long time. Now, there is an advantage for persevering long enough, but I have 5 decades in consulting. So 5 decades doesn't sound quite as daunting as 50 years. With that said, I got into consulting quite accidentally. I was after getting an MBA, I was working at one of the nation's largest banks, and they discovered I wasn't going to be a banker about one day before I discovered I wasn't going to be a banker. Fired. So doing a career search for myself at that time, Victoria, there was a thing called Yellow Pages. This was before Monster and then before Indeed and all the online services. So literally, I started going through the Yellow Pages. Oh, A's. I don't think anything in the A's was attractive to me. So I went to the B's and I said, well, bakers wake up at 5 a.m. I don't want to start baking at 5 a.m. C, consultants, management. I can do that. So I literally tore out the Yellow Pages. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time. Tore out the Yellow Pages and went shopping for a job with my resume. Yes, all before electronic. I literally stumbled into a small boutique firm who ended up hiring me. The significance of that is the fellow who hired me, Nathaniel Hill, was one of the founders of what ultimately became and merged with another one that became part IMC USA. And he was a real big believer in professionalism and ethics. So quite by accident, I stumbled into his firm. 7 years under his tutelage, went to work as internal consultant, 5 years in a very large organization, internal consulting. 10 more years in public accounting, started 2 consulting practices within the public accounting arena, formed my own company in 1995, where I became the ubiquitous solopreneur, or as in the UK you say, a singleton. When I built my business plan, it was simply, thou shalt not hire any consultants. And so far I've kept true to that. I've practiced again since 95. I've been an executive coach and consultant for 15 years. Big believer in ethics, which you already mentioned. I'm chair of the IMC USA Foundation, which is about ethics education. Been a CMC for 35 years, and all that only goes to prove you can survive that long in consulting.
This is quite impressive. When I got your biography or resume first, there's just so much that of course we couldn't even put everything in the announcement. So it's great that you can share with us a little bit more of the things that you've done. What I wanted to ask you to do, because not only consultants are joining our broadcast, and even if some of the consultants are joining, but they might be still at the beginning of their career. Sure. Can you please explain to everyone what those designations that you carry actually stand for? I know that you're a CMC, a Certified Management Consultant, you're academic fellow, and then also you have a designation from IMC USA. If you can just explain the significance of those, and so that our younger consultants can understand where they can still grow even after they become CMCs.
Thank you. The main significance is the CMC, Certified Management Consultant. Again, I've had that since 1980. I earned it in 1988. But one of the keys about the Certified Management Consultant is every 3 years, you have to update it and prove that you're still maintaining currency. So there are approximately 8,000 CMCs in the world. This is the highest level of consulting. The key for me, the CMC tells my prospects and my clients, shows my clients and prospects that my work has been validated by an outside independent source. Okay, it's not just some puffery that I put on a website. They look at past engagements. They look at referral sources. They look at references. Excuse me. They look at what you did and do you know those consulting competencies. Now, I'll talk about those in a few minutes, Victoria, but it's a proof that you have, as you had mentioned, even Gabrielle had his CMC. It's the highest level of consulting. Now, those two designations that you see on the screen are also a little higher of those. The first one is the fellow, where in the U.S., I'm one of 61 consultants who have ever been awarded the fellow. Again, recognition of where I've been. A year earlier, the ICMCI, the International Management Consulting Institute, awarded me the academic fellow. What didn't show on the discussion earlier is I've spent 25 years as adjunct faculty at a business school, teaching a variety of courses and actually working on some consulting courses. So they are nice recognitions, as they were. The key one for me, though, is the CMC, and I'll talk about that in a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the explanation. I just wanted to say that we also got some previous comment from Andre. He was congratulating me specifically for having you here, and just wanted to say hi to Andre and thank him for joining us today. And as we already announced, as you've seen, we will be talking. Well, David will be talking today about ethics in consulting, which this is how when I first talked to David, and we've known each other from the past.
Yeah.
We just haven't been in touch for a while, and then you reached out, and I was kind of going through your profile, and I saw all those posts about ethics, reputation, and then I thought, wow, wouldn't that be a great topic for us to bring on in the show? So this is how it all came about, and I know that David is very passionate about it. So I would like you. We have another
Konstantinos
joining us from Athens, from Greece. Well, that's another country that we can add to our list of followers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome. And you're very welcome. You're thanking me for hosting. Always my pleasure. So we might be still having people tuning in as we go on, and we will just be posting the comments or the greetings or the questions on the screen. And just like we discussed, we can start with your presentation about ethics and consulting, or rather your reputation, and then if the questions come in, we'll post them and you can answer them
please
at some point.
So let me just pick right up from there, if I might, Victoria. Here's the deal. If you spend 50 years in consulting, you will hear the bad jokes about consultants. There's no question. It started back for me nearly 50 years ago as a newbie into consulting. We all heard the joke of when the client asks you what time it is, you take their watch and read them back the time, and then keep the watch. Now, that was so popular, as it were, in the 70s as a bad joke on consulting that, what's his name, Martin Klin, wrote a book called House of Lies that ultimately ended up to being a, pretty insipid TV show, but it was about consultants. So other jokes at that time were anyone with a briefcase from 50 miles away from home is a consultant. The one I didn't like was the one that consultant someone who knows 50 ways to make love and doesn't have a lover. So, we were always picked on as a career. And as such, over time, there became this reputational damage. Now, I am not here, Victoria, and to the listeners, to criticize management consulting as a profession. I love it. I have hung in there for 50 years. Nor am I here to criticize other consultants or consultancies, because actually that would be in direct opposition to one of our items on our code of ethics. So I am very supportive of consulting. But what I'm reading and hearing from public sources is giving me some distress. Okay. I don't like the negative press that's denigrating our profession right now. Now, in today's environment, one may argue whether the press itself is biased. All you got to do, as example, is look at the Fox News settlement. Okay. But that's not my issue here as to whether the press is biased or not. The general public reads, listens to, hears these examples and draw their own conclusions. And most of the time, it becomes a pejorative context about consulting. That's the piece I don't like because it's affecting my reputation and the reputation, by the way, of everybody else on this call. Okay, they're putting a bad brush, painting a bad brush onto the field. There are large-scale examples of ethics have gone awry outside of consulting. Recently, we know of the Volkswagen diesel emissions scandal. That cost Volkswagen $18 billion. Or in the U.S., Wells Fargo is one of their banks. Last year alone, they paid $3.7 billion to settle some of their problems that have created massive problems with their reputation. Those are the large-scale, public, not about consulting, but just lapses in ethics and the result. Any lapse in result causes a loss of brand trust, decreases customer loyalty, and has a negative impact on profits and revenue. Now let's take it to our world, our profession a minute. Anya, there are a number of examples that have come up. Consulting firm agrees to a $1.75 million settlement in a water treatment plant. A global consulting firm pays nearly $600 million in settlement over its work with opioid companies. Consulting firm agrees to almost a $5 million settlement to resolve a class action data suit. 3 consulting firms are implicated in Angola corruption scandal. A global consulting firm is now implicated or subject to a criminal probe in France for allegedly violating French campaign laws. The New Republic magazine has an article that alleges a major consulting firm's activities in the hospital world created a systemic elimination of humane health care. The newest book out, and that's got me really riled up, was Mazzucato and Collington's book, The Big Con: How Consulting Industry Weakens Our Industry. They argue that the lack of transparency around a consulting firm's work left potential for huge conflicts of interest. And after all that, the one that really gets into my skin and gets under it very deeply was in November. The Economist had an article that started with this quote: "If a list were made of the most reviled species in the professional world, only investment bankers would stand between management consultants and the top spot." Let me read that again. If a list were made of the most reviled species in the professional world, only investment bankers would stand between consultants and the top spot. Now, the article went on to say, skeptics portray these corporate consiglieri as snake oil salesmen, bamboozling chief executives and politicians with management gibberish and glossy chart while gorging on fat fees. Those are the first 2 sentences in an Economist article. Okay, I'm not here, again, to take on those firms. But what's the commonality here? Okay, what's the commonality? Has greed overtaken us? Or is it just bad behaviors? Or what? So what I'd like to share a few moments on is that what are the tools that can be used to fix this situation? Because those press articles damage my reputation because they besmirch consulting. And that makes me angry. I can do good work, but the word consulting gets slammed because of some other actors' bad playing. That's all. But there's a way to fix it. Okay, if I may then. Let me step back a minute, because as the world changes, so does management consulting. In fact, in a recognition of that, ICMCI, the International Council of Management Consulting Institutes, last year changed the definition of what a management consultant is. And it has three parts. A management consultant shall be defined as one who helps organizations solve issues, create value, maximize growth, and improve performance. 2, through the application of their knowledge, techniques, and assets. 3, to provide objective advice, expertise, and specialist skills which the organization may be lacking. Now, what is notable in that definition is they didn't pick up the traditional view of management consulting, strategy, policy, management, and the like. They opened it up. They made the definition more inclusive to those who help organizations. And they go on to say that the definition shall include consultants who work as a solopreneur, such as myself, as a partner or an employee in a practice or a firm, and those who work as internal consultants to an organization or government body whose primary purpose is not management consulting. Okay. Well, I know that one of the callers, one of our viewers today, has come out of that latter one. He was an internal consultant to a large organization and now going out on his own. So all this very inclusive definition helps us define what we're going to be, and how I'm asking everybody who fits that definition to consider 4 things, if I may. Okay. 4 things thank you. 4 things in particular. Learn the consulting competencies. Later on, we'll show you a link, but that's ICMCI and now IMC USA, both adhere to the same set of consulting competencies. Get a code of ethics, a code of professional conduct, and be trained in ISO 2700. All 4 of those. Now, I'll come back to the self-evaluation later in my comments, but once you get those 4 under your belt, as it were, Victoria, what you know is how to consult, not what you consult in. You may consult in marketing, IT, strategy, turnaround, operations, you name international business, shipping. It doesn't matter to me what you consult in. What differentiates me and the others is how we consult. Now, as I'm going to go through those first 4, I'm going to share just a few points out of each, where had these other examples of consulting firms adhered to these 4, what happened likely wouldn't have happened.
I just want to say, David, that
Please.
Actually impressed me a lot when I was reading some of your articles that you wrote on ethics and reputation and reputational damage and the fixes, and also listened to your podcast where you talked about the same topic, is that you focus on, you make this distinction about that most important is how you consult and not what you consult on, because the standards, the principles are the same regardless of the field.
Okay. And thank you, Victoria. I mean, think for a minute. When we go to we, being all of us, go to a networking event, we have all been taught to give your 1-minute elevator speech.
Yeah, and actually, Dwight comments on this as well. He says, well said, Dave, this is the difference between someone who sells their expertise to someone who consults. Yeah, so
thank you. Okay. So thank you, Dwight, and thank you, Victoria. Think for a moment, though, that elevator speech you give as a networking or even in front of a prospect. First of all, what's the first word in an elevator speech? I. Mm-hmm. Okay. And by the way, at that point, as soon as you start with I, In my sense, listening stops. And then what you do for the next 59 seconds is you tell that prospect what you do. And it's about what you do, that technocracy, the skills that you have, the experience of you had. And by the way, folks, to be a little pejorative about it, they don't care. They share instead how you consult. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later on if we have time. Okay. But it's not about what you consult in, it's how you consult. Learn those 4 things that I described. Now, if I could start tying it back to the reputational damage a minute, if you look at the consulting competencies, there are 51 items in those 4 areas about business insight, practice capabilities, consultative behavior, and ethics and professional contact. There are 51 subsections. But all I have to do is verbally call out a few of them, and you, as a listener, consider whether or not if somebody else, if some other organization had been behaving according to these competencies, would these egregious lapses in ethics happen? For example, up there in those 4 subheadings, there is one that's talk about adding value by ethical behavior, which creates a delivery system, a win for people, the planet, and profit. Consulting, underneath that consultative behavior, there's one that says on professional consulting behavior, you shall demonstrate honesty, respect, integrity, independence, objectivity, and accountability. Okay. You show further on, you show respect that earns respect. You show behavior that earns respect of professional colleagues and clients. Okay. You act in a truthful manner. You show integrity, just flipping through some of them. Okay. In fact, out of those 51, 12 of them, I'm not going to go through them here, but 12 of them go directly to the ethics lapses that we had. My sense is, had somebody understood, these are international competencies, folks. Had someone understand that, they may have called the question, why are we doing this in this way? Okay. So the code of ethics is the second one that I'm asking. So consulting competencies first, the code of ethics. IMC USA has had a code of ethics of 15 points. 15 points for a long period of time, but they have 3 main sections. Is a commitment to clients, commitment to fiscal integrity, and, coincidentally, a commitment to the public and the profession. And out of those 15 that are embedded in those 3 that you have on the screen, out of those 15, here are 3 in particular. Ask yourself again, as you hear these, had somebody adhered to this code of ethics, that they are, thank you, Anya, had they adhered to this code of ethics, would we have had these lapses? I will serve my clients with independence and objectivity. I will avoid conflicts of interest or the appearance of such. I will represent the profession with integrity and professionalism in my relations with clients, colleagues, and the general public. So just using those 3 that are core to IMC's code of ethics, my guess is some of these ethics lapses that we hear about causing reputational damage may not have happened. Okay. Go to the third one, for example, the code of conduct, code of professional conduct. Now, the one I just showed you was ethics. The code of professional conduct is how you behave as a management consultant. The purpose of the code that IMC, Code of Professional Conduct, IMC has, and now IMC USA has, is to instill confidence in the profession and help you become more successful. It's establish a profession-wide understanding of appropriate behavior as a consultant. Here are the 5 main sections of it. How do you serve the best interest of clients? How do you serve the best interest of society? Serve the best interest of the organization within which you work? How do you serve the best interest of those persons that you work with? And how do you serve the interest of the consultancy profession? And throughout it, these 5 main sections are similar items that you've heard before. I will act independently, Anya. I will act independently and objectively. I will consider the, never mind, I dropped that slide. I apologize. I will consider possibility of conflict of interest. I will follow a process which conforms to ISO 20700, and I'll address that in a minute because that's my 4th leg. I will demonstrate personal qualities of honesty, objectivity, integrity. I will respect social and corporate responsibility concerns. Okay. I have respect for the profession. I promote the image and the standing of the profession. Again, those are just some of the items, Victoria, that are within that code of professional conduct. Okay. Once again, it is my belief that had these people adhered to this, like the consulting competencies, like the code of ethics, and now the code of professional conduct, I believe that we would not have had many of these egregious examples of breaches that we've had. The 4th element is new, by the way, and that's the ISO 20700. This is very new. In fact, it is the first international standard for professional services, and indeed is specifically for management consultants. Its purpose, and it's a series of checklists. Its purpose is to improve transparency and an understanding. It's to have creative, constructive, open conversations with prospects and clients about how the service is intended to work, ensuring success and satisfaction. It's a common framework for conversation and communication. So what I'm suggesting is we have accessible to us 4 items that are relatively easy to understand, but they form the very foundation of how you consult. And you heard the words objectivity, integrity, honesty, transparency all throughout it. And again, my belief as an individual practitioner is, had they, the ubiquitous they, had they adhered to it, had knowledge of it, we likely would have had some of these examples that hurt the profession of management consulting. That's all. And that's the piece that frustrates me, because these have been out, these 4 elements, other than the ISO 20700, have been out there for years.
David, as I'm listening to all this is a great framework, definitely, that can be used to guide consultants in their work, so that their reputation is not in danger. And but I'm just wondering, is it that simple, actually? Because I'm sure that every particular case, every piece of work, or every project might have certain nuances, right? So is it that simple?
Well, I'm going to give you a really conclusive answer, Victoria. Yes and no. Okay. Yes, it is that simple. No, it's not that simple. So, but let's look at it for a minute. In a parallel sense, consider a medical prescription. When you are offered by a doctor a prescription has 2 parts. It has what the medicine is and how to take it. Okay? For it to be effective, for it to have the efficacy it needs, you have to not only have the right medicine in the right dose, but also how to take it, daily, evening, or what hour. So the first piece of the medicine, as I see, are those 4 pieces that we just talked about that are easy to understand. Okay? That's the medicine. The harder part is how to take it. Okay, how to take the medicine. So how to administer it. But because now we're talking about humans, human behavior. And unfortunately, to a large degree, there's a 5-letter word that gets in the way. It's called greed. Okay. Greed is just one example, and it can overpower that need to do something that is right. The medicine, how to take it now, is we need strong, foresightful leadership. We need leaders of consultancies, large and small, need to recognize that the individual and collective behavior of consultants can reverse this reputational damage. But taking it requires working and using the medicine. It is the right thing to do. Now is the right time to do it. It's just right. Okay. Administration of the medicine means adopting and adhering to, publicizing, correcting, the self-evaluation that I had up on another slide, periodic examinations, ensure that we're doing these things. None of these are easy because we are dealing with, Victoria, human behavior. Okay. So the prescription is there. Can we do it?
All right. We have a question from Johan, and are you,
That's correct.
David? Are you kind of finished with a little bit, so we can take this question now, or would you prefer to continue?
Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's
give me
just
2 minutes, and I'll go back to Johan's comment because I read it up there. Okay, so
yes,
2 minutes just to, as we have this prescription, the problem we're having with it, it is driven by a deeper why in us as humans. First and foremost, as I said, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's simply the right thing. At our core, at our center, it is the right thing to do. Second, and for me, it serves market differentiation. You are separating yourself as a consultant from everybody else. So it seems that there's a priority to have a call to action now. And I see 5 simple steps to get it done. Is you establish in your firm, or even if you're a solopreneur, ethical standards. Look at IMC USA's Code of Ethics. 2, you ensure compliance, and that is the Code of Professional Conduct. 3, and the key to it is you increase the accountability within the firm or within yourself. Build the culture you want, or get the culture you deserve. Okay. Encourage transparency. I know it's a buzzword today, but you've got to be able to allow people to report unethical behavior without retribution. You have to make the invisible visible. And then finally, improve overall the corporate culture, because a strong corporate moral compass is more likely to have those employees engaged and motivated. So I'll take those questions and then wrap up later. Johan, for example, referenced the nearly $600 million settlement. Can you put that one back up?
Yep.
Okay. Nearly $600 million settlement for their advising of the firm. And please note what Johan wrote there. The consulting firm will not admit wrongdoing according to its settlement, but will agree to court-ordered restrictions on its work. Okay, so folks, I'm not here to pick on McKinsey. I'm here to pick on anybody who is not vulnerable enough to say, we messed up. The only way you can fix something is be open and honest enough with yourself. Now, 600 million may not get your attention. It would get mine. Okay, that's a pretty severe spanking. Okay, And it was, there are some organizations now. I saw Dwight's name come up from Canada, our northern neighbor, and there's some criticisms up there about firms that are on both sides of a deal in terms of consulting to an industry, members of an industry, while consulting to the industry regulator. Now, that to me sounds like really square in the middle of a conflict of interest. Okay? But that requires leadership to prevent those situations from happening.
All right. David, I see we get more questions coming up. So I just wanted to say that you have that last slide with the resources, with the links to ICMCI website, which I'm sure a lot of people already know about, but I will ask Anya, who is behind the scenes helping us technically, just put some of the links, including your company's website and your email in the comments. This way they will stay there for anybody who will want to check it out later. Is that okay? So yeah, Anya will do that, and we can then just continue with the questions, because I see quite a few of them coming up. And yeah, so Anya, maybe you can start posting the questions. By the way, yeah, thank you, David. This was and is very, very interesting. I know we don't have all the time in the world to go into details, and as there are particular cases and situations, but just the summary that you presented is very valuable. And let's go through the questions then. So, Konstantinos.
Yes, no question. AI will affect ethics in consulting, already is. Our colleague Dwight, again from Canada, has written a good blog post on it. But here's my sense is, and as just an example, right now there's an add-in to the Microsoft products you can get that's tied to ChatGPT. One of them is called Ghostwriter Consultant. And in Word, you can, in that add-in, you can type what type of report you want, what's the topic of it, who it's going to, how you want to write it, and who you want to influence and all that. And you push a button, and then 20 seconds later, there's a report. Now, that's disturbing at a lot of levels, particularly when here we are in a gig economy, and an economy that is uncertain, and we're going to have, I suspect, more people in as consulting firms have layoffs. And another one was announced last week. We're going to have new folks coming into the consulting profession. So they go to their desk, they push a button, and there's a report. That's scary. Okay. So, Konstantinos, your question is very appropriate. I wish I had an answer for you, except to answer specifically, yes, AI will influence consulting. And for me, it becomes a big ethical issue. Am I letting AI write a report for me? So it's something that we're going to have to be wrestling with, because it is here, and it is something that will affect us. Okay.
Thank you. Well, someone from, there is another question from Rich, referring to a course on ethics when using artificial intelligence. Thank you for this information, Rich. Do we have more? We have a few more questions. Actually, I see there is, this is a question from Anya, who is, by the way, helping with this broadcast. She is behind the scenes. And Anya is in the Netherlands, and she is a student of sustainability. And so she's asking whether it is ethical for consultants to work for companies that are damaging the environment, such as fossil fuel companies.
Okay.
David?
So let me take a hack at that. And again, sort of like the answer I had earlier for Victoria, the answer may be yes or no. the main thing in there that's significant for me as a certified management consultant is that ICMCI, just last year or so, changed the consulting competencies that we follow. And in the consulting competencies, they added a social responsibility piece to it that wasn't there heretofore, in particular to support the UN sustainability goals and ESG. Okay, so already within the competencies I stand for, there is a social, we'll call it a sustainability piece that I am supposed to be aware of. It does not tell me, the competencies do not tell me that I can't serve in an organization that is hurting the environment. It's telling me that, asking me to consider UN sustainability goals and ESG in what I do. Now, the other answer there, Anya, in particular for me, is if you have as a consultant, if you have a strong belief, then my answer was don't go work in that company. So I have to give you an equivocal answer. The consulting competencies and all the frameworks we use do not say you can't, but it does say, please consider sustainability goals. Now, again, it depends at this point where your own values are and what you stand for, if that helps answer that question. And it's not a conclusive answer.
I think there is another comment from Juan. Actually, it's kind of relevant. So Anya, maybe you just So okay. Maybe he is asking you to expand on the reference to right thing to do, and that's what you've already been basically talking about. Thank you for your question, Juan.
Yeah, Juan, I appreciate it. Let me go off script a moment, if I will. And around the world, we fortunately have many religions. Without going there deeply, part of the fundamental part of many or most religions is to do the right thing. In Christian, which I am, it was do unto others as you would have do unto you, or do for the least of these, or so forth. So there is worldwide, while there is not one concept of what the right thing is, there is a view of what the right thing is as a value. Now, my thing is tying it back to ethics and what we're talking about here. Those 4 things I presented, from the competencies to code of ethics, code of conduct, and 2700, helps you derive your practice, helps you create your practice around the right thing. And listen to the words we used earlier: integrity, honesty, objectivity, independence, and those things. So I think, Juan, the right thing to do is do these competencies, okay? It is the right time to do it, particularly in this environment we have, and it is simply the right thing because of the way these are positioned. We all have values as humans, and once we recognize what our values are, if we're starting to do something that's counter to our own values, then it's likely not the right thing. That's just my belief. Does that help?
Thank you, David. That's definitely a very insightful answer. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing all this information. Here is another question from Anya regarding artificial intelligence. If you can please elaborate on why you find the prospect of AI in consulting scary. What exactly are the ethical concerns there?
I could give you a specific example, Anya. And part of it goes back to my 50 years worth of experience, and it was always about footnoting or giving credit to somebody else for their work. Okay, we all were very sensitive to that. One of the problems I have with AI, and it is showing up in academia now, or reports are getting written through AI and submitted by a student. And credit is not given credit. Earlier last week, I got some work from a peer. I was asking the peer to do some things, and at the bottom of it, it said footnote, credit to ChatGPT or whatever. So the scary part is that original work can be made to appear original when it is not. That's all. Now, in all fairness, I use it. I use it to write an outline or capture some drafts for a blog, but then I severely rewrite it. I find it in the design, in the creativity phase, very helpful. But I will not accept that work as final. And that's the part. It would be too easy for me to push a button and 30 seconds later have a blog and post it. That's not my blog. That's AI's post. That's the scary piece, because a fair number of people won't know the difference. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me, definitely. And that's why I'm also debating in my head often how much of that we can actually use, although it might be helpful at some points, but then it is a little bit scary. That's true.
Okay. If I may then, in the remaining time, come back to the topic at hand of ethics in consulting. I would like to obviously see it change. Here are the 4 tools. You saw the resources. Go look at them if you're interested. My sense is the bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. Leadership needs to start being a change agent to set a new standard for ethical practices in consulting. Look at and adopt these things I talked about today. Okay, we have a worldwide audience. Most of you are familiar. Most of you are in countries that are served by ICMCI. Go look at it. Okay, if you're in the U.S., go look at IMC USA. It is the place to go. Okay, it's important. And the key for me, being selfish, is having all these tools under my belt. How I consult is different than the estimated 1 million consultants in the U.S. today. They are consulting on what they do. I differentiate myself on how I do it. We need to reclaim the high ground, Victoria. Okay.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. And I was just showing this comment from a LinkedIn user who really likes your insights and and would like to quote you: "Increase
Please.
Transparency, make the invisible visible," by David Norman. This is an excellent quote. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to remind those who are watching us now that you can still post your questions or comments in the comment section. And let us check. Anya, can you see if there is anything else coming up? If please, that's another comment from the same LinkedIn user.
Yes.
Regarding artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, not everything that is presented by artificial intelligence may be correct or true. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Victoria,
you.
thank you. Well, thank you for giving me a forum. Obviously, I'm proud of the profession I accidentally selected 50 years ago.
From the Yellow Pages, right?
From the Yellow Pages, absolutely, from the Yellow Pages.
By going down the alphabet.
And I got mid-alphabet before I found a firm. So I'm pleased to have been here. I'm honored that you had asked. I really like what you and Gabriel Oswald Foundation are doing on behalf of Consulting Worldwide. So cheers to everybody out there.
Thank you so much, David. Well, before we wrap up, and you can still stay with us for a few minutes, again, thank you so much for your great presentation. And for those who are watching us now, or who will be joining us later by watching a replay, there are comments. In the comments, there are some resources that David mentioned. You can just visit those websites, and David is also very kind to share his personal email there. So if you have any specific questions, or if you want David's opinion of what is ethical, you can email him directly, and I'm sure he will respond very quickly. Thank you. I just wanted, before we we end our session, I just wanted to remind everyone that the Gabriel Salim Foundation runs the annual award for excellence in consulting. We've been running it since 2012. It's happened almost every year, with the exception of a couple of years when we had COVID. And we usually, our deadline for submitting the applications is October 1st, and then the award international committee is reviewing the applications and usually come up with the decisions and the winners by mid-December. And we make our announcements on February 1st, which is Gabriel's birthday. And this is our usual date for our bigger event, a conference that we do on that date. And then that's when we also include the award announcements, and we celebrate the winners. You can find the information about the award on the foundation's website, and it's also in the comments. And there you can actually see the eligibility criteria, how you can apply, and the evaluation process. It's a quite simple application. Not very hard, and it is free to apply. Also, this year, we've announced a special award for Ukraine, given the situation there. With this special award, we are recognizing companies and organizations making positive contribution to Ukraine's economy and victory. So consultants or any other professionals can nominate deserving Ukrainian or other organizations for this award. The deadline is the same, October 1st, and the announcements will be made at the same time as our International Award for Excellence in Consulting on February 1st. So please just visit our website to see the simple application that you can fill out describing your project or your work, the eligibility criteria, and then all of the other details. We look forward to those applications. Thank you so much for considering this. And again, for today, thank you for joining us today. Thank you to David for your excellent presentation and your wisdom and insights on such an important topic as ethics in consulting, or ethics in pretty much anything else that we do in our life. Thank you to Anya for running the backstage, posting the questions, and turning the slides. Please tune in again in 1 month on June 1st. This is our regular time for our broadcast on the first day of each month, at the same time at 13-hour Greenwich Mean Time, GMT. And the speaker and the topic will be announced a little bit later on the foundation's website and on our social media. And I promise it will be another great discussion, and we'll try to connect it to International Children's Day, which is June 1st.
Okay, nice.
Thank you for staying with us. Have a great rest of the day wherever you are on this globe. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Whoops. Bye-bye, everyone.